Hi, I'm Pete, and welcome to Just a Few Acres Farm. The seasons are changing, and our farm changes with the seasons. I love that about it. This is one change. There's a lot fewer hens out here. In fact, there's half as many as there were 2 weeks ago. The rest of them, unfortunately, are in the freezer. You guys got a little ice in your dish this morning. Our summertime broilers are long gone at this point. Some of them are in the freezer, and a lot of them have been sold already. But we got all these boxes around here that need to come in. And as for turkeys, well, there's just these 10 big guys left. You guys look really good. And I mean that in more ways than one. We only grew 30 turkeys this year. 20 of them are already in the freezer, waiting for Thanksgiving celebrations. 10 of them are left out here. And these guys are big. That's what we wanted. We saved 10 of them for large turkey orders, 20 to 25 pounds. A few 15 pounders in here, probably 2 in the hens. They're going next week. So next week, this turkey enclosure will be empty and it can be cleaned up and come in. The hens will come in when the weather turns real bad, when we get kind of a consistency in freezes. We'll know, well, it's time to bring them into the winter house. Broiler boxes get pulled in next to the barn. This pasture will be cleaned up for the winter. And we've got 2 steers here, the last of the year, that are going to the butcher in 3 days. And then all the steers will be gone from 2020. And we have 1 cull cow going in a month or so after she weans her calf. And then that'll be it for beef until we start the process again in the next spring. Hey, gentlemen. So a really frustrating thing happened this week. I went and we shot a video over the course of the day. It had everything in it. I cooked some stuff. We brought the steers in and we showed separating the herd. We moved the chickens. I talked about what we were doing with stew hens and things. I went to put the footage on my computer in the evening and the SD card went pfft. I lost all the files. Whole day gone. Well, let's go out and see the cattle. Black walnut trees have already lost their leaves. Last to get leaves, first to lose leaves. But these tulip poplars are beautiful. That is a bright yellow. Wow. Patty, what are you up to? You guys are just hanging out. Why are you yelling at me? Let's go in and see what the damage is. You guys are just hanging out enjoying the sunshine, huh? Patty, you're chewing your cud. You got nothing to complain about. She begs to differ. The cattle are all getting their furry coats for the winter. They know the weather's changing. It's been below freezing here for a few nights, and in the daytime gets not above 50 or 60 degrees. You're 3 of a kind. Coco here. I think this is Coco's calf from last year, a yearling, and Coco's calf from this year. They're pretty content hanging out here in the sun, absorbing the heat, but I think I'm going to give them some new pasture. We're going to put them right on this little field here, only a couple acres, but the grass is ready to graze. All right, guys. Yeah, I know all about it. Go ahead, guys, come on in. Little ones. Mr. Titus, how you doing? Of course I'll give you a scratch. We always got a few calves get a little confused. They're on the wrong side of the fence, but they'll figure it out eventually. And everybody's heading off to explore the field. See what's good to eat. What's going on over here? Pigs meet cows. The grass is definitely not greener on that side of the fence. These guys are busy eating rocks, you know. This calf says, "What is that thing? It's the same color as me, but it just doesn't look right." You guys get your fill of the good grass. Oh, it smells funny over there. I don't know. It's so nice seeing cattle out on new grass, especially at this time of year where quite often they'd be back in the winter pasture, but we've got grass for a couple of weeks longer. I want to give you guys a flavor of what fall is like around here, and this is the best place to do it. Where'd that rock come from? Just popped right out of the ground. This is where it's at. The colors are so vivid. There's a turkey vulture up there. This tree is sumac, and most people say, sumac's a weed, kill it. But in the fall, it gets these beautiful seed pods on them. Look at that color. And the leaves, oh my gosh. And the maples there are just incredibly vibrant. Yellows and greens and turning to reds on some trees. Let's go in here. Here are the two dominant tree species we have in our forest. We've got maple, and then growing right next to it, we have beech. Without human intervention, at least in my experience, beech tends to overcompete maple. So starting when I was a kid, one of my first memories of cutting wood down here with my grandfather, cutting down huge beeches, that big around with amazing horizontal limbs that came out, and that's when the beech blight started to come through. So what you get now is a healthy looking tree about this size. It get much bigger than that, and the center of the tree starts to rot out, and we just don't see beeches of the size when I was a kid. We have to go through and thin the beeches kind of on a generational basis. You know, it's that once every 30 years thing to keep the maples in the mix that we want in the forest. So in a way, this is kind of an artificially generated mixture of trees. The beeches would creep forward if we didn't keep them in check. Although a lot of the forest is maple and beech, there's also quite a bit of cherry mixed in, a few oaks and soft maples, what's called around here swamp maples, that grow in wetter ground. And as we get down into this section of the woods, we have a swampy portion. In these wetter portions of the woods, it opens up because trees grow to a certain size and the soil gets soft some season and they topple over in the wind because their roots can't grab hold as well as much. The whole ecology of the woods changes in this area. You get some willows growing in wet ground all the way over there. You get a lot more soft maple that grows in this. You don't get any beech. Some cherry will try, and all trees try. There's some ironwood there, but they don't live like they would in the rest of the forest because of the wet ground. If you sit and you look, there's so many things you see in the woods that you don't if you're just driving by it. And this scene right here is just filled with information. So remember I talked about selectively harvesting. This is a maple stump that was harvested probably 15 to 20 years ago. And what do you see growing up around it? Well, these are beech saplings here that are growing up around it. Remember I said that the beech will outcompete the maple if given the chance. The other thing this brings up is how you sustainably manage a woodlot. This woodlot's about 10 acres, and of course it's been in my family for 7 generations. I've seen in my 50 years this go through phases. You can over harvest a woodlot but through taking firewood and logging off of it, and there are photographs, aerial photographs from the 1930s I have of our farm that shows this wood's mostly gone. It's there's a lot of open spots because it had been over harvested. Here's how we harvest the woods, and here's some frequently asked questions about how we treat our woodlot. Number one question I get, seems like once a month, is why don't you run your cattle in the woods? Well, I don't run the cattle in the woods because there are certain parts of this forest ecosystem that are delicate. In fact, you know, could you imagine cows with these seedlings? They'd be eating leaves off of all of this, and what we depend on when we harvest firewood is not going through and seeding new trees, but leaving seed trees that replant the forest for us. So you'll see around here, there's beautiful examples of all kinds of species of trees. We leave those and selectively harvest the ones that are culls, that have a bad lean, have a low crotch in them, look like they're going to come down in a storm, may have come down in a storm already. That's what we focus on. But for every area that we cut firewood out of, we always leave seed trees, really fine examples of the species that are growing around it, to act as the mothers for the next generation of trees. And when you're working in a forest responsibly, you're not thinking about what you're going to harvest in your lifetime, you're thinking about what the next generation's going to harvest. And here's a tree in our woods that outcompetes even the beech. It's basswood.
already lost its leaves.
And like all ecosystems, forest ecosystems are always leaning. They're always progressing to a climax ecosystem. And in our area, it was the hemlock forest that was the climax ecosystem. So none of this is stable. It's always changing. And this basswood is something I've seen change in my life. We've been cutting a lot out. Here's a stump of one that we cut out last year. It's terrible firewood. It's real light, and firewood's all about density. The heavier it is, the more heat you're going to get out of it. Maple and beech are both excellent firewoods. We're burning a lot of this basswood now because we got to get it out of here. It spreads like crazy. And so ends my little forest tour. Back out into the light of day we go. The other way we harvest firewood is by keeping the field edge. So the forest is constantly encroaching out, and every 20 years probably we cut it back. So we went down this field, this line here 3 years ago, and took cherries out of here and trimmed back the maples to keep the line where it is. And the same thing happens all around the hedgerows. We go around those and look for trees that need to be thinned. And hedgerows have a huge purpose on a farm. I think that purpose was forgotten in the fence row to fence row planting fever that started in the 70s. There's a lot of ecological benefits to hedgerows. Home for different species of wildlife, beneficial things like birds that eat bugs, and they provide a shade break for cattle. They provide a wind break. They provide wood for heating our home. That's huge. Hedgerows are worth a lot. I'm sad of all the ones that we've gotten rid of in this area and cleared out to make bigger fields. I came walking up here and the cattle all went running. Where are you guys going? You're coming to see me. Howdy, cows. What's going on here? Why are you guys running around? I guess you're happy. Here they come again. Well, you went through the fence. You guys are goofy. Now we're going to run around that way. Titus says stop. These guys are going to have a bit of a pushing match over here. It happens. Just a friendly little competition. Yeah, Orden steps off. That's the way it is when they know who's boss, I guess. Howdy, piggers. What are you guys up to? This batch of pigs is growing out nice. They're due to go to the butcher the day after Christmas. What? I gotta keep my eyes about me, make sure I don't get bit. These guys are friendly, sometimes too friendly. In the summer we hand feed our pigs, what I call hand feeding. In the winter we have the automatic feeder in the barn so they can eat whenever they want. And when I'm hand feeding, it's interesting because you observe how the pigs grow and you match their feed appropriately to them. So pigs don't grow. It's not like you go from little pig with the same proportions all the way up to big pig ready to butcher. Pigs will stretch out just like teenage humans do, you know. Their frame gets bigger all of a sudden and they start to thin out. So we'll feed them along, kind of creeping up a little bit, and then when they hit that teenager phase where their frames are really expanding, then I really up the feed. We're feeding probably a third more than we were 2 weeks ago to get the frame to fill out. And you're always watching things like, you can't see it here, but the rear end where you can see how much fat's collecting on the hams to try and get them to that point where they're not too fat. It's always a work in progress. I'm always looking at the pork we get back, and particularly the bacon and the ratio of fat to lean in the bacon, and thinking how I would adjust my feeding schedule. It's much more interesting to me than in the wintertime when we're creep feeding them out of that automatic feeder to see what their consumption is matched to how their body condition is. And as you all know, feed's a huge deal for us now, and keeping that pork profitability means is closely matching the feed intake as possible to the pigs so that you're not trimming off 50 pounds of lard off of a pig when it goes to the butcher. Huh? Huh. I can't go through that door. There's a bush growing in front of it. Somebody's got to trim that. It looks terrible. So I'll go through this door instead. Oh, I wish he'd oil those hinges. Why aren't those hinges oiled? Today may not be Friday for you, but it's Friday for me, and I got to pack for market tomorrow. Where am I going to put this? I don't have any place for this. Let's see. Chicken backs and necks, popular for soup season in cold weather. Chicken livers, can't believe how well they've been selling this year. Stew hens, another cold weather favorite. This is what happened to half our layer flock. They become stew hens at about 2.5 years old, and they are so good to make stew with. Stew hens, they're really tough. And with me always, as toughness increases, usually flavor increases. As the age of the animal, the toughness and the flavor, they all go up at once. And these are a delicacy to the people who know how to cook them. And how to cook them is really simple. You just put them in a pot and simmer them all day, and then pull the meat off, strain the rest out. Man, look at all that yellow fat. It's just not like a young chicken at all. Some people specifically look for these. Unfortunately, we only carry them from now in October through when they sell out, usually in February or March, and then all summer long we don't have them. We're heading toward the low point in our stock, and just like everything else on our farm, how we sell follows a seasonal pattern. It always dips down in late fall and through the winter. We have fewer products available. Heck, remember I was bringing 100, 150 dozen eggs to market up until the summer solstice on June 21st. Tomorrow I'll be bringing about 20 dozen. That's all our hens are laying because it's their natural slow time. That's why we take stew hens now. This is when the hens slow down. You want to spend less money in feed for the ones that aren't really going to come back as well because they're older. So we take them as stew hens. And as far as beef cuts, this is all we got left until the next batch comes back. Everything's running low. These are hanger steaks. You only get one per animal, and they're kind of like a tenderloin. They grow inside the body cavity. These are prized by people who know how to cook them correctly. A lot of people don't. And of course, ground beef, delicious. Lots and lots of ground beef. And here we have whole turkeys and turkey parts, boneless breasts, legs and thighs. I'm going to start selling them this weekend. It's getting close enough. We're out of chicken cuts. We sold out of chicken cuts the weekend we quit selling fresh chicken and went to frozen. They sold as fast as we produced them this year. So it's just whole chickens. We've got quite a few of those stashed away for winter selling. And that's it. Load the stuff into the truck for the booth, and we'll be ready to go. Farmers market for us at the Ithaca market runs 50 out of 52 weeks of the year. So we're outdoors down at the pavilion where you see the videos usually until the weekend before Christmas, I think. And then we get a 2-week break, and then we start right back up again, this time in an enclosed mall uptown in Ithaca from January through March. It's a steady market. Even though it dips in the winter, we still got things like eggs, and we've got lots of frozen chicken. We'll have more beef and pork in January. So that's the way it goes. On market day, it's easy because I've got all my booth stuff loaded in the truck. We just load the freezers and the coolers up in the truck. I don't have to get up early or anything. I get up at about 5:30, my normal time. I'm off to market a little before 8. Market opens at 9. Market changes to opening at 10 in November. It runs 9 to 3 until the beginning of November, and then it runs 10 to 2 after that. And you are always welcome to come to see me at market any Saturday. Our farm is always changing, not only what's happening out here with the beautiful leaves and the weather cooling down, but the types of animals we're growing. We're all done with broiler chickens for the year and things are slowing down. I'm getting to spend more time in the shop. I like that seasonal variability, and I hope you do too. I showed as much of it as I could in this video as far as how we change and the kind of slow transition that our farm goes through seasonally. The final note that I have is that we have hats on our merchandise platform, farm focused, as well as a bunch of other stuff, t-shirts and sweatshirts and those big coffee mugs, tumblers are called, the insulated ones, and stickers. So check it out. I always put a link in the video description right below the video here. Some pretty cool stuff. I'm kind of partial to this hat. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time.